Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla, and today I'm coming back to ya with another episode of Car Rides with Schla. And today I think I had a bunch of stuff I probably wanted to talk about, but I have forgotten. Surprise, 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 surprise. At the end of the day, I guess I just had a bit of a moment to myself, and I don't know, just kind of things hit. My mic looks like it's not in the right position all of a sudden. Oh, it's because, the wire was wrapped around it, so it couldn't. There we go. I don't know, I mean, life's been moving along. Oh, I remember what I was going to talk about. I'm not really surprised, I guess, with the content and me being my true self and it not really seeming to catch on. Because I really don't think there's much of an audience for the things I'm talking about. I don't know who would really be interested in believing them, I guess. And still to this day, anytime even my friends who are most interested in learning, people either completely don't care or they argue with me. And a lot of people still do that. And it's very exhausting because the amount of time I've spent looking into nutrition, I've spent so much time looking into nutrition, and then when it comes up in conversation, random people who have not spent any time at all looking into nutrition start giving me their opinions and start arguing with me about stuff, and they have no idea what they're talking about. And I've noticed this is a pretty consistent issue with people in arguing, is people just don't know what they're talking about. And they'll argue about something and have an opinion about something that they have no knowledge of. And this is insane to me because a lot of times, if I don't know something, I just say it. I say, yeah, I'm not too familiar with that topic. I haven't looked into it. I don't try to pretend as if my opinion about something is valid when it's not. I usually say that. I usually say, well, this is what I think, but I'm not really sure if that's correct because I haven't really gone in depth with that. I have never just argued with somebody just to assert my opinion, and I have no evidence for why, or there's no reason for it. Just to argue, just to argue with someone just because I have an opinion I don't want to change, even if it's wrong. And I've just noticed this with nutrition specifically, because there's obviously a lot of conflicting evidence, especially recently, as they have actually tested a lot of the nutrition theories that were concocted. And I've done a lot of research into this stuff. This is not, I've poured hours into researching about nutrition, and at first I was doing plant-based. I was eating sunflower seeds and cashews and pistachios because it seemed like that stuff was packed with nutrients, and it was fairly cheap for the amount of nutrients it had. It contained, it had is not a good. It was fairly inexpensive for the amount of nutrients it contained, and I didn't need to cook anything. It was just easy to for lunch at work, just pop some cashews into my mouth. It was, and I felt healthy. I felt like, what people were saying. People always said nuts were healthy. And this is where we get into the truth, which is that I don't think nuts are particularly healthy, given what we know about them. I don't think sunflower seeds are particularly healthy, given what we know about them. if you're just looking at the nutrients, they would appear to be something crazy, like something super good. Sunflower seeds appear to be this amazing concoction of nutrients, this amazing, affordable concoction of nutrition is how they appear. But it's not really true. I don't think it is, at least, because then you learn about the other issues with a lot of these plant products, omega-6 fatty acids causing inflammation, unsaturated fats, which a lot of people were told were healthy, but as it turns out, they're actually more inflammatory than saturated fats. I know I was told stuff in school like, oh, when you look at fat, like butter's a saturated fat and at room temperature it's solid. So when you eat it, it turns solid in your arteries. And my 6th grade teacher told me that, and I believed him. It sounds like it makes sense. It sounds like solid at room temperature in your body. Now, I thought about it, and I thought, it doesn't make that much sense because your body inside is hot. It is not cold, and your blood is not cold. It's probably warm enough. But even that, I don't even know. Again, I'm going to admit it. I have no idea. This was my 6th grade thoughts about it. There was this discourse for a long time, though, that fat was unhealthy. And I think it's another thing that people just kind of subscribe to. In the same sense as fruit being healthy. Now, a lot of these things I was always keen on since a child. Since I was a child, when I was younger, I tolerated fruit. But the older I got, the more I became repulsed by it. To the point now where you'd have to pay me to eat fruit. I think it's probably one of the grossest things. I don't understand why people like it so much. And then with what I'm going to get into, it's even more of a obvious thing, I guess. I've heard all kinds of people, though, people who barely research nutrition or any of that stuff, make all kinds of completely incorrect comments about nutrition and diet stuff. Some people recommend rice and beans if you're on a budget. Maybe that makes sense on a budget, but I would assume you're most likely going to be now malnourished eating food like that. Most people would be. I think everybody would not be at their best. But you hear people trashing red meat still. You hear a lot of that stuff. I'm having a hard time being concise. I apologize. I'm trying to think of, I guess, a more orderly way to get into this. The big kicker, though, and the big thing that I was never aware of was the environmental impact. So I had believed up until this point that raising animals and meat was worse for the environment. That's what I believed. Wholeheartedly, it seemed like it made sense to me. It seemed like, like an animal's going to use more resources. It's going to cost more resources to make beef, to raise a cow, than it is to... it's going to cost more resources to raise a cow than it would be to farm some grain. No brainer. I thought that would be the case. And I agreed with that. I don't know. It seemed rational to me. It seemed like it made sense. But I never really bothered to look into it too much because, I don't know, that's just what everybody said, and it made sense to me. But I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about fruit and how wasteful it is, because it is wasteful. Fruit is particularly inefficient at being food. It's mostly sugar and water, and it has some amount of fiber as well, but not even, I don't even think that much fiber. If I had to guess, there's a lot of fruits that don't have a ton of fiber per se. But there's not much there, and you have to think about how quickly fruit goes bad when fruit's picked. It actually goes bad a lot faster than meat. It's incredibly inefficient. It's estimated that around half of fruit ends up getting trashed just due to inefficiencies with transportation and just the limited lifespan of fruit. Fruit can be rotten. You know, when you eat fruit, you have to check to make sure, you know, it's not moldy or rotten. It's really something. It doesn't make any sense to transport all that. And now people vaguely think fruit is healthy, but they've never actually looked at the stat sheet. They've never actually looked at what nutrients are in fruit. So nobody could say that. Oh, blueberries are healthy because they have antioxidants. People don't even know what they're talking about. You don't even need that much antioxidants if your body is not having an oxidation diet. That's the whole thing. Like, it doesn't, and the reason why fruit has antioxidants is because it has sugar. So it's self purifying itself. That's why it has antioxidants, and why animals don't need the kind that are in blueberries or strawberries or pomegranate, for example. And I've had this conversation with so many people. If you look at the stat sheet for blueberries, if you look at the stat sheet for these fruits, bananas, watermelon, grapes, apples, any of them, you will see there is barely any vitamins or minerals present. There just isn't. You're not really getting any nutrition. They're claimed to be healthy. Everybody believes they're healthy. I believed they were healthy too, blindly. People told me that blueberries were healthy, so I ate them when I was a teenager. My dad bought them. My dad brought strawberries. He bought apples. I always hated apples, though. But I would eat them sometimes because I was told they were healthy. I was told that fruit was healthy. I was told that fructose was a healthier sugar. And then it turns out it's not, because it's exclusively processed by the liver. So it doesn't really make any sense. Sucrose is actually healthier than fructose, from what I understand now, just because it's at least processed normally. Fructose is not, well, it's probably fine on the liver, but for extended periods of time, you have high fructose corn syrup, which is obviously the fructose extracted from corn. And that's horrible for you. It's so much worse than regular sugar. And it's fructose. So, yeah, I mean, eating it in a fruit is going to be a more reasonable amount, but it's still not great. I mean, I guess it's probably fine in moderation, but sucrose is also fine in moderation, and I think there's a legitimate argument to be made that sucrose is actually healthier than fructose. But that's something, again, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on. This is me estimating. So my estimates tend to be accurate, but don't take me as an authority, you know, because this stuff, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not trying to argument. I'm not trying to argue like a crazy person. I genuinely want to learn, but there has just been a lot of things that I'm just so shocked that people blindly believe and know absolutely nothing about. Like the amount of people that would say, oh, an apple's healthy, and then, oh, have you ever looked up the nutrition in an apple? Do you know how much potassium's in it, how much calcium's in it? Oh, no, they know nothing. Nobody knows anything. Was it that crazy that I wanted to do that? I mean, when I first really became of age, when I was really starting to get into nutrition, I guess I was around 19 or 20. That's like the first thing I did. I was like, okay, let's see what the healthiest fruit is. Is it, let's go based on the nutrients. And the first thing I found was that fruit is lacking a lot of nutrients. It's lacking a lot. That was the first thing I saw. And I was thinking, that doesn't make any sense. I thought it was supposed to be healthy. Now, I think pomegranates do have, off the top of my head, or bitter melon was another one. But it's still low. Like, pomegranate was still pretty low in terms of nutritional content, especially given the cost of a lot of these things. It's also because I think pomegranate is more like a seed, so it's a little bit different than an apple, for example. That's why its nutritional amount is a little bit higher, but presumably because it's a seed, its anti-nutrients are higher. Because obviously plants do not want animals to eat their seeds, because then they'd be out of luck. So a lot of the toxins are in seeds, they're in nuts, because why would a plant want an animal to eat those things? It just doesn't make any sense. It's so outside of a plant's best interest. So most of the toxins are in the seeds. I guess some toxins could be in leaves, but I believe a little bit less. But it depends on the plant, I know spinach is particularly bad. Arugula is less so. So I guess it depends on how important the leaves are to the plant's function. Suppose it's something like that. Now, to try to reel it all in after this brief barrage of a bunch of nonsense, I mean, probably one of the worst explanations of anything I've given. The main thing is that fruit is just a total utter waste. It's very expensive for what you're buying, and it's a huge waste of money. It goes bad quickly. It's such a joke. It is a joke. It is a scam, and it's actually very bad for the environment, which is the irony that nobody would ever think. Nobody would ever think fruit's bad for the environment. I don't think I've ever heard somebody say that my entire life. And I just found out, just due to thinking about it and guessing and realizing, yeah, something with no nutrition that you're going to ship all over the place, that goes bad quickly, makes no sense. You know how much money fruit probably loses food stores? It probably causes so much of a loss to food stores. It's insane. And that's why it's so expensive, and you're not really getting any nutrition out of it. So when we're talking about cost of living being high, when we're talking about things being expensive, this is why. This is exactly why. Because we have so many systems in society that are serious luxuries. I've talked about liquids before. Now I'm mentioning fruit. They're serious luxuries. They're not things that people should buy if you're poor. And yet poor people buy them all the time Because again, I mean, people might think they're healthy. People might think it's a good use of money and that they're doing the right thing by buying fruit for their kids or for themselves. Because there's so much miseducation about nutrition. The culminating point, and this was very shocking to me, is that it's actually far better for the environment if we operated on an efficient meat diet, animal-based diet. If instead of pouring all the water we have into the plants, we just put it into a bunch of chickens and cows, it would actually be better for the environment, because a lot of these fruits use a lot of water. Avocados use a ton, which is one of the healthier fruits. Avocados use a ton of water. Mangoes use a ton of water. There's plenty of other plants as well. And so they use all this water and all this farming resources and land. It causes topsoil erosion after a while. You have to rotate crops, and either way there's just limitations because of how much it ruins the soil when you mass farm plants in the way that we do. It ruins the soil. That doesn't even happen with animals, because animals actually fertilize the soil. It's like the opposite. So in terms of efficiency, if you kill a cow and make a bunch of ground beef, and you have to ship that on an airplane or whatever, that's so much more efficient than having to ship fruit. You know what I mean? Because the amount of nutrients in a pound of beef, it just dwarfs what is in like a pound of blueberries. And it's denser too. A pound of beef is going to take up way less space than a pound of blueberries. So if you have to transport it, it's so much cheaper to ship as well. So in a developed society, it should really be a primarily meat consumption. And it's crazy for me to, it's still kind of hard for me to believe. I guess I should vet the information more. But I'm putting it out there in this episode because I think it's insane. I think it's an insane revelation. It's something I definitely believed, that there was, it just takes more resources to make meat. I've heard it before from people I've considered intelligent. And it's just crazy to know that they're wrong, and that there's actually far more waste from fruit especially, but plants. Now obviously vegetables are not as bad as fruit because you do have a lot more nutrients in vegetables. But here's the thing, you're still dealing with protein. You need protein in order to be functioning at your best. And a lot of people aren't even going to be able to process the protein from beans remotely as well as from meat. That's the truth of it. And I wonder beans too. I mean, I think beans could be one of the more efficient foods. I think that's fair to say because, but again, I'm actually total guess. I could just be wrong. I'm not even going to say that. I have no idea. I didn't look up how much water beans take. But if I had to guess, if I had to make a guess, I think they're probably the most efficient plant food source. But it's crazy to me that yes, it's still more efficient to do meat because it's still more efficient. You're still getting more nutrition from eating a pound of beef than you are from eating a pound of black beans. You just are. And it displaces less space to ship, so you'd have to I mean, I shouldn't have to explain this, but it takes up, you'd have to do less airplane flights, you'd have to do You'd need less shipping trucks. I mean, it's crazy the amount of pollution it would reduce if society banned a lot of these plant things and just use animals. It would be more efficient. Because the plant products make people end up eating more. That's the whole thing. It makes people eat more because it doesn't satiate you. If you eat meat, you get full. Like, I never feel hungry pretty much. I almost never feel hungry. I only eat twice a day. So the amount of material that I ingest is a lot lower than most people. But it's dense and it's filling, and so it's very efficient in a developed industrious society to transport. Now, I've argued about this with people all the time, and a lot of people are still stuck on the carb train with corn or potatoes or bread or pasta, and I used to be there too. I used to think pasta was great, but once you see the light and once you've ate the way I ate, there's just no way. I refuse to believe it. And so I hope carnivore is not bad. I hope it doesn't have long-term effects, because I have seen debate about that. But I just can't imagine it. I feel amazing. I mean, I am doing so much better than I've ever done. So much better than I've ever done eating carnivore. It's not even particularly close. I feel great, and everything tastes great, and it's easy for me to maintain because I've always liked beef. I've always liked eggs. It's just so good. It's so easy. And so that's why it's difficult for me to think otherwise. I don't know. It's really difficult for me to understand how plants could be healthier at this point. I do not understand it, especially because animals are literally a much higher form of life, and they carry so much more nutrition. So it's crazy to think about that it would probably be better for the environment if everybody ate like me. And so this is what led to this realization. So I've broken down and I've told y'all, and I know a lot of people just want to argue or want to not believe this, but yes, fruit is very materialistic, it's very luxurious, it's a huge waste of money, and it's not that nutritious. Meat, believe it or not, especially in the context of an industrious society, is better for the environment for us to consume. We're sold eating plants because they make us sicker. And then the industries win when we eat these things and need to go on medications and stuff like that because of eating that kind of stuff. And so this gets to my point. A lot of the content and the things I'm talking about, I realize just how deeply disconnected it is from usual discourse. Whenever I've talked to anybody about any of this kind of stuff, I'm realizing not only does nobody care, but nobody even has a comprehension. They don't even care. No, we don't even need to get into comprehension. Nobody cares. People have opinions about food they like or things they like or don't like, and they just stick with it. Never trying to experiment, not realizing that if they tried carnivore, they'd like it, and then they'd end up sticking with it. People are just so resistant to change and to get out of the carb mindset. I don't know, and like I said, I did. And maybe at first it was difficult for me as well. you know? Like, it wasn't easy. I thought I was still going to want pasta as a treat and things like that. I had it, the first couple weeks of me doing carnivore, I would still have my pasta on the weekends. But then that just stopped. And, like, over time, I'm just more and more disgusted by bread. I want nothing to do with it. It's crazy. I don't even have to try. And that's why avoiding carbs doesn't really work unless you go carnivore. Because you're still going to have the cravings because you're still getting carbs from a lot of the vegetables that you eat or the nuts that you eat. And as long as you're eating any type of carb, it manipulates your gut bacteria and your mouth bacteria to crave more carbs. So it's just this endless cycle of addiction, really. And it's making you think that these things taste better than they do. Because then once you've ate carnivore, you realize that the bread doesn't even taste good. It never tasted good. It hits you. It never tasted good. Because like I said, it was immediate for me that it never tasted good. It was just instant. It tastes bland. I would never want bread. It's like something you have to get away from. I used to like it, but this doesn't taste like anything now. Because when you don't have all that sugar in your gut... Now, I still eat dessert sometimes on the weekends or whatever, but it doesn't cause the sugar cravings because I guess there's not enough. You have to eat like a certain amount of carbs in order for it to ferment in your gut, and then you start craving it. So I'm getting off topic. Let me swing right back to my main point I'm kind of trying to get at, which is the content I'm making and my thoughts. It's so ahead of my time. Most people would hear this and not believe me, or they wouldn't care. And I don't know, like, who's going to watch this? A lot of people just, even adults, have zero interest in a lot of these topics that I talk about and a lot of the things I'm saying. I know I've mentioned it before, but it's kind of why society is in the situation that it's in now. This is why. People don't vote. People don't have good conversations about things. They don't care. And so that's why we're in the predicament that we're in now. So I really don't blame the billionaires. I really don't. I know that they orchestrate things and they prey on human psyche, but human psychology being there, it's inevitable. Of course we're going to get taken advantage of if we're acting like that. I mean, I just don't understand where the blame is being put towards. Of course we're going to get taken advantage of if we're that easy to just manipulate. If people care that little about important things, of course. I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked at all. And so that's where I'm making content, and I'm realizing I don't know anybody who would like this content. Nobody, either people don't understand or they don't care. Food for so many people is a core pillar of their life and their existence. For me, it doesn't even matter that much. I don't even think that much about food. Well, I mean, I do from a nutritional standpoint, but not a taste standpoint. I just don't, because I don't see it that way. I don't think food is something that matters very much, and I think that's not my opinion. It's objective. If you look at the issues that we face as a conscious species and that humanity faces now, food and taste should not be at the top of the list. But of course it is. Of course it is at the top of the list. For whatever reason. And it's just because people don't care. And people care about bright things, flashy things, things right in front of their face. And they just like believing what they're told, I guess, which is that fruit's good for you. Which, again, I'm not even saying fruit, it's not like fruit itself is bad. Most of the issues with fruit are its environmental impact, not necessarily its impact on the body. Like, you're not going to die if you eat fruit. You'll probably be healthier than a lot of people, especially if we're comparing it to processed foods. But it's not good as a pillar of someone's diet. It's not good as a standalone food. It's maybe a snack. It's maybe a side. And that's what it is. It's nothing more than that. And people view it as a meal or as something healthy to eat. And you just have to wonder how different things would be if people were nourished properly. Because a lot of these people who don't eat right, they're struggling. They're either depressed or they're anxious or all sorts of issues. And like I said, I don't know that I'm free from those yet, but man, things have gotten a lot better. And it could be totally coincidental because I've also made other changes in my life, but I really think the food has a lot to do with it. It's just crazy. It's crazy how much it matters, and I've reiterated that before, how much health matters. But again, it's so confusing to people. And then there's that issue too where humans are always going to be biased towards whatever they heard first. So once they hear a certain opinion about a certain thing, they're always going to be kind of biased towards that. If you hear incorrect information and then it has to be corrected, most people won't change their mind. They're just going to default to whatever was first told to them, even if it was misleading or incorrect information. And a lot of people I don't even think are aware of that psychological phenomena. So it shows, right? It shows in how people act. But this show is totally ahead of its time. I mean, I don't even know if in a decade this show will, or I'll get credit for the stuff I'm talking about. The things I'm talking about are just so way ahead of schedule. It's such a show that is, I'm realizing that I'm really dealing with a lot of futuristic topics, and I've explained humans have a horrible gauge of the future because they can't even figure out what they're going to eat tomorrow. So at least with me, what I can say about myself is I follow a very consistent schedule. My sleep schedule's consistent, my meal's consistent. I can plan and I can execute a plan properly. And that would imply that my ability to gauge and guess the future is going to be vastly superior to just some regular human, right? And that's kind of the premise for my argument as to why a lot of my predictions for the future are going to be accurate. Now, granted, you can't just go back through my catalog and I've said some outrageous future predictions. I've also said some realistic ones. And time will tell. I mean, I don't know. I've made incorrect predictions before. But in terms of my finger being on the pulse, I know what's happening. I think I know what's happening more than anybody because I can see it and I can calculate it. And that's another issue is, and I think we've talked about this before, math deficiency and being able to see and guess things, trajectory. People cannot figure out trajectory very well at all. And it really holds them back in terms of comprehension of things. And I encounter that so much because all have pretty good comprehension and I'll understand something and then I'll explain to someone an opinion and I'll assume that they get it and I don't even think they got it because they may just disagree with me because they don't even understand that there's a calculation to what I'm doing. They might just not even believe that. And then if they can't see it because they don't understand math, how are they going to prove it? You know? They can't prove it for themselves, so are they going to take my word for it? Apparently not. Apparently people don't like doing that. And it's crazy. It's just insane. The amount of times I've told people completely correct information and then they've just given me their opinion and it's wrong. Their opinion is wrong, you know? And then I'll try to explain to them why they're wrong. And then they just start making stuff up. I mean, the amount of times I've been in that kind of situation, it's very sad and frustrating. Because I don't usually assert things unless I know it's right. You know, if I know something's right, and even if I did assert something, I know it's right and I get proven wrong, that's fine. But that doesn't usually happen because, again, I don't. But, I mean, the amount of times I'll bring. And this is adults. These are people who are adults. And that's what's crazy is I'm so young. I'm like, you should expect me to be flawed. You should expect me to make mistakes. You should expect me to be more arrogant. And I'm not. I mean, it's crazy. And the amount of time I've researched in all kinds of things. Like I said, I'm looking into wool fabric, which is magic. So you barely even need to wash wool. It's much more environmentally friendly and it holds up better. It lasts longer and it's so much more comfortable in the meantime. A lot of the fake fabrics and even cotton that exists now, you have to wash it after each time you wear it because bacteria grows in it. Wool is naturally antimicrobial. Microbacteria. I don't even know how to say that. I've heard microbial before. I think it's correct, but I don't know if that's just something people made up. It's antibacterial. So you can wear wool multiple times, apparently, and there's no odor or smell. And some people even claim they leave it out. And then eventually it just I don't know. It's crazy. Now, I'm going to see with testing if that's exaggerated claims or not. It's also supposed to absorb sweat very well, and it's much more comfortable. So I'm pretty excited. I'll probably order it maybe this week or next week. I just wanted to figure out from their support why PayPal isn't accepted. I talked about that not last episode, but this episode before, the last Car Rides with Schla nighttime shift. So, yeah. I don't know, but it's crazy because nobody's ever told me about wool or that it's good. It's this like super good fabric. Nobody's ever even told me because nobody cares. This is the whole thing. No people. I am blown away by how little people care about anything at all, and I think that is the most paramount issue with humans. It's just that they don't care about stuff, and I'm really over it, and I'm very frustrated about it. And I don't even know what else can or should be said about this whole conversation. I mean, I'm just mad. I'm sad. I'm not mad. I'm sad. Because I just want to be in a caring world where things matter and people want to make the world a better place. But anyways, it's been Schla, but now it's time to buy Schla. So, see ya, Schla.